Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It's so great to see all of you, and thank you for coming out on this very warm day. We promise we'll keep this very short. But first of all, I'd like to just give a huge round of applause to our artist, Colleen Ganos. Isn't this beautiful? Yeah, it's amazing. I'd like to thank Colleen. I have some people I'd like to thank. And then I'm going to share with all of you very briefly how all this came to be. Then I'm going to introduce Colleen, and then she will say a few words about how she put the mural together, and then we'll conclude. So to start, thank you, Colleen, for the generosity of your time and resources to create this beautiful, educational, and heartfelt rendition of Dixon's history. This is a dream come true for the Dixon Historical Society, and you helped us to make this happen. Not only that, but we are leaving a legacy for future generations with your mural, so thank you so much. I'd like to thank Colleen's husband, Che Miller, and Colleen's in-laws for thank you for hanging the mural. You all did an excellent job. I'd like to thank the Dixon City Council. We have Mayor Bird and other members of the council. I think I saw Kevin Johnson, and if I'm missing any names, please let me know. John Vasquez is here. Where is he? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. He's the county supervisor for Solano County. And I just want to personally thank you for your mentorship and your guidance. I'd like to thank the Dixon City Council and Herman and Lucy Ganos for your generous donations to make this a possibility for us. So. I'd like to thank the Dixon Historical Society Board and all volunteers for your help with 3 major projects that we accomplished over the past 2 years. One being all the historical research for the 50 Party Plaza pictures, which those will be going up in the near future. Also, all the lengthy research for the walking tours and for our timeline that we have in the museum. It's those 3 projects that allowed us to get this going with Colleen. So a big round of applause to all the board and all the volunteers and all of the editors, all of you. I'd like to also introduce to all of you, we have a new museum curator, and his name is Frank McKinney. He's right here, so give him a warm welcome. Yes. And he is a blacksmith and a jack of all trades, and he's going to be here this weekend during Railroad Days, providing a blacksmith demo for you. So be sure and come back this weekend. We'd also like to thank Herb Hartsook. Where's Herb? Herb, we'd like to welcome him. He's our new board member. So a big round of applause for Herb. And we're delighted to have him as well. Thank you to our members and all guests for being here today. So I'm going to go off script to see if I can keep this very short for you. How did all of this happen? Well, about 3 years ago, when the museum was set up in April of 2021, there was a committee formed, and everyone said, how wonderful would it be to have a mural, a historical mural? And so all of these different ideas were passed back and forth, and all of these pictures. And committee members came and went. And on June 14th, 2022, I was in Madrid, Spain, re-immersing myself in Spanish and visiting as many museums as I could in a 10-day period. I think I went to 20 museums. And a lot of pictures and a lot of great ideas were shared in the committee. And I said, okay, what do I want to see in this mural? What is the legacy that we want? So I took out a piece of scratch paper, and these are my notes. And this was on the streets of Madrid, Spain. And I had a piece of paper, I pulled it out, and I just sat down, and I drew everything that I wanted to see in the mural. And so very briefly, what I did was I took a picture of this, and I emailed it to Colleen. And I said, what do you think about this? And at first I think she said, well, that's a lot. How are we going to fit all of this here? Well, she worked her artistic magic, and she made it happen. So we met through Zoom, Colleen and I, and my mom, Diane Schroeder. We're the committee chairs, and we met through Zoom. And I expressed to Colleen, I said, I want to make sure that we have the railroad in the center with 1868, because that's when Dixon was established. And then I want to portray Thomas and Jane Dixon, because they donated 10 acres to the railroad. And then I want to share how Dixon got its spelling change. Well, there are 3 theories. One is that a package was shipped to William Ferguson with the misspelling of Dixon rather than Thomas and Jane's last name, Dickson. Another theory is that some literature papers came up from San Francisco with Dixon. And the other theory is that the railroad signs, as you see, were spelled Dixon, all misspellings. So the town of Dixon went back and forth over 2 years. Do we call it Dixonville, or do we call it Dixon, Dixon? And the county recorder kept Dixon because it's shorter and simpler. Then I thought it would be nice to have all of the different cultural groups who have contributed to the land over the decades. So what you see is the Wintun. The Wintun tribe is sometimes referred to as Patwin. Wintun means native people. Patwin means native people. And Wintun is people body. Okay, but the actual tribe is Wintun. Colleen's going to share more about her rendering of the Wintun. Then you have Los Californios. Los Californios are the children of the Spanish and Mexican land grant families who would have arrived out here as early as 1769. In this area, you had the Berryessa family who came in 1777, and then you had the Peñas and the Bacas who came in the 1840s. Other land grant families that you may recognize are Vallejo, Solano, Armijo, and then of course Peña, Vaca, Berryessa. Who else do we have? Let's see. So after the gold rush began in 1848. Most people were very unsuccessful, and other people looked for other ways to make a living. So these small townships were created. Specifically, we had Sylvieville, established in 1852. We had Tremont, 1855, and Main Prairie, 1859. So when the railroad went in 1868, people moved their homes and businesses to be closer to the railroad. So you see the Methodist church on logs pulled by mules. That represents the act of moving the buildings to be closer to the railroad. Let's see. We have the Pony Express marker by the Californios. And the Pony Express went from Missouri to Sacramento. And then the riders would catch a barge from Sacramento to San Francisco. But if they missed the barge, they would have to ride by alternate route through Davis, Dixon, Vacaville, and so on, Fairfield, all the way to San Francisco. And one of the stops is here in Dixon on Schroeder and Sylviaville Road, where my parents live. There's a marker. Let's see. Okay, this represents a lot of the German and European families who farmed wheat and barley in the 1800s. Then you have Los Braceros. This was a federal government program. This was 1942 to 1964, and they filled a labor shortage during World War II. So while the American men were fighting in World War II, Los Braceros, they came up to work. Notice the short hoe and the back-breaking labor, and also notice this one picking tomatoes by hand. The Braceros would be paid per lug box, about 25 to 50 cents a lug box. Then you have sheep. Most of you know that Dixon is lamb town, so a lot of sheep and wool. We have modern tomato harvesting. Colleen's going to talk more about that. At one time, Dixon was called Dairy City, and it was one of the largest producers of milk. So we have the dairy farm, we have the milk farm, and let's see, that's 1917, established by Carl Hess. We have Nancy Geary, who was a freed African slave who came out from Missouri with the Duke family in the late 1800s. She was a midwife nurse, and she established her own ice cream shop. And so that coincides with the theme, the dairy theme. And last but not least, we have John Fong, who represents the Chinese American community. At one time, Dixon had pretty much its own Chinatown with restaurants and stores and dry cleaning. And also the Chinese immigrants made up 90% of the labor force to build the railroad. And so we want to honor them as well. So I'm going to now pass the mic over to Colleen, and I'm going to have her talk about more how she put the mural together and her artistic renderings of the history.
Thank you, Kim. You did a beautiful job. I mean, it is so much history that this town has. And I just want to thank everybody, especially the Historical Society, for choosing and trusting this project with me. It's pretty important, and I could not include everybody. As much as I'd like to paint the entire town in here, we had to kind of go with a lot of symbolism, like representing, like the sheep representing the sheep farmers, and the cattle representing all the dairy. So it was a lot, and it was tough to leave out some people and some groups, but this was what I came up with so we could, have a dialogue. There's things that, I'm sure people have questions about. I myself knew that there were Native Americans in this area, and that's it. I never thought to ask any more questions. I just knew that they were there, and they were on the land that my dad farms. And that's about it. And when Kim approached me with this idea, I was so excited that I get to do historical research on the Native Americans that live in the town where I grew up. So this process has been a huge learning process. I knew nothing about the Wintun. I knew nothing about many of these business owners, the dry farming, and the Californios. But Kim went over just about everything. You did a great job, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about the history, and then I'll go through the artistic process and try not to take too long. The Wintun, I was fortunate enough to meet and talk with someone who was raised in the culture, which, in the 80s, it's in the history books that they went extinct, and it's not true. There's many of them out there. They were down to probably about 19 people in their village. At one time there were 60 villages, and now they're down to 3. And the ones in this area were Yochadihi is the name of their particular village, and they lived off of salmon and collecting herbs. I mean, this Dixon was teeming with waterways, rivers, and Chinook salmon. So I wanted to portray them as fishing people because that's what they were. They grew tule. Well, the tule grass grew wild, and they'd use that to make the tule boats, cordage, grass skirts, dolls, all sorts of things. And I wanted to show their medicinal herbs, the plants that they used, because they lived so in tune with the land. And so what I portrayed here was rose hips, which are used for nutrition in the winter. They're full of vitamin A and vitamin C, and then they use them for digestion, colds, and fevers, and many other applications. On the left, I have woolly milkweed, which they use as bandages when you're actually cut. And then the purple flowers behind her, those are vinegar weed, and that is also used for sore throat. It repels fleas, so you put it in your bedding. Many uses. But the rock star of the herbs is the soaproot, which is the elder. She's harvesting right there. That plant can be used for so much, but mainly they would take hundreds of bulbs and they grind them and they throw them in the water, and it's toxic to fish but not to humans. And what it would do is it would stun the salmon. They'd all float up to the surface, 20 or 30 fish. And so I have this gal collecting the Chinook salmon, and I used Pam's daughter as my model, who's also a native Wintoon. So I was really happy to be able to use her. And then I've got a gentleman harpooning Chinook salmon. And the bald eagle, this area was loaded with bald eagles and hawks. And the hawk I included because it's a very important part of their creation story. And then the tule elk, of course, and their villages that are made out of tule grass. And so the other part that was really, really fun for me is to do more of a dive into the agriculture, which some of you know I'm a farmer's daughter. My dad's a tomato farmer, my brother is, and my nephew is now. And I got to do some research. Kim had asked for a 40 mule team, and I asked her if we could cut it down to 20. These 20 mules took me so long. It doesn't look like it, but yeah, it was a lot of detail. And that was the dry farming they did during the winter months before the dam was built. So the Monticello Dam was built in 1957, and they harnessed Pewter Creek. So they were able to farm crops year-round. Tomatoes, I have these Braceros short-hoeing sugar beets, which were a really predominant crop until there was a disease in the soil, and everything that they tried to grow in that soil, it just attacked it and stunted it. So they had to be resourceful and start growing other crops, let the fields rest. And so tomatoes, lots of labor, you need really good land and lots of water, but it's a cash crop. You can make a lot of money off of it. So and the tomatoes were being handpicked by the Braceros until they were able to be mechanized, which using tractors and machinery in the late 60s. And so that's what I have over here is, even this is almost kind of old, they have more updated machinery, but I have, this is the way they harvest tomatoes rather than relying on hand-picked, which is so much labor. And so what I'll talk about, anything I miss, Kim, about historically?
Sure, more about
The modern harvesting?
The driver.
Yeah. Yeah. These two gentlemen are pretty near and dear to my heart. So I've got my nephew in there, and that's my pops. And I know my pops is a big business owner, but he was happiest driving a tractor. So I got to put him in the tractor. Anyways, so the creation of this mural, working with the Historical Society, they did a phenomenal amount of research, made it easy for me, and then plus the Dixon history book. So I was able to go through and we talk about ideas. There's certain things I just could not include because it's, as you can see, it's a lot in here. And aesthetically, you just can't put everything in here. So this was my idea of a composition that included the townships and notable moments in Dixon's history and the various cultural groups that have contributed to the town. I came up with I forgot how many sketches. I think it was like 17 or 20 sketches, just hand drawn for 1-inch scale, so 14 by 14 inches. And I would just sketch it out, the ideas, nope. And so I came down to 3 sketches that I presented to Kim and Diane and the board, and we talked about different things being added, and we settled on this design here. And so what I do is I do a 1-inch scale rendering, which I'll go grab it out of the van shortly, but basically it's high school art class. So you have a 14 by 14 inch drawing that you scale up to 14 by 14 feet. So 1 inch in my rendering equals 1 foot on here. And that's how I was able to snap a line. You snap a grid on these panels and just draw what's in that little 1-inch square. So the panels that I mentioned, this was a nice workaround. Instead of me being here every day sweating on the job site for, 3 months painting, I created this in my studio. So these are aluminum panels. They last forever. They last a phenomenal amount of time. They're primed on the back and the front, and then I reprime them, and I put the design on them, paint on them. And I hired a metal fabricator to weld frames. So there's a metal frame that's exactly the same size as each panel behind it. And what we did on Tuesday is we brought all those panels, and my husband, we built the scaffolding, and he kind of directed up a crew of my in-laws and myself, and we anchored these metal panels to the wall. So if you look on the side of the mural, you can see the metal here, and it's 1-inch aluminum. Doesn't rust, it just never decays. So this mural is going to be here for a long time. And then once we got all the whole frame up, then he riveted the panels, the art panels to it with an aluminum riveter. And we've done this before with lifeguard towers. It lasts a long time. So my only touch-up I had to do was on each of these little rivets that are holding the panels in place. And then I coated it with this sealer. It's called Mural Guard. Anybody can graffiti it, and anyone can wipe it off. It comes right off. It's amazing stuff. It's required by the city of LA to go on all public art projects. It's that good. So it's a 2-part catalyst. And anyone could just put acetone on it and wipe off the graffiti in a couple minutes. And it has UV stabilizers. So this, and the paints that I use are designed to last in exterior conditions. And, Dixon has some pretty harsh sunlight. So I imagine it's going to last a very long time. It's very archival. So I will be around to answer questions if you have any questions for me, but I really want to thank everybody who contributed, everyone who gave me information, even my brother over there about like the cannery being built for the tomatoes, and I got lots of help with the research. And thank you, Diane, and the entire board. Yeah, I am. I'm related to the Party family and the Gados family.
So I just want to add that Colleen is amazing. As you can see, she's more than an amazing artist, but the amount of research she did was incredible. All the extra steps she took, she studied what we gave her, but then she went above and beyond that, even meeting with Pam and the native Wintun lady. Yes, and she even read At the River, which is behind you if you want to show. This was a book written about the Californios by Sadie Peterson Reddick, and she was a first grade teacher, and you drew the characters after some of hers. Maybe you want.
Yeah, there's a few characters in the book that I was inspired by, but the guy that ran the hacienda, he's kind of the big boss that took over after his father died, is Jorge Luis, and he's the guy on the left that's roping the bull. And the guy on the right, I imagine, there was this younger younger guy, I can't remember his name, but he was just full of vim and vigor. He was probably about 19 years old, and he was ready to rescue and save the day. But as we can see, Jorge Luis has the bull first. But yeah, a lot of these people are inspired by people that I've met, and I love painting the Dixons. It was very hard to find a happy picture of them, so that's the best I could do. Everyone looks so miserable in the 1800s. Oh, yeah.
And so we'd like to give you, this is a bouquet of flowers for you, and those are from our garden. And then we have something that you can share with your husband, because when we see the two of you together, we see you in hats. So now you each have a Milk Farm hat, and we have decided, because of everything you did for us and your generosity, I have to tell you that Colleen only charged us half of her rate to help us as a nonprofit. So that was so generous, and this was such a detailed mural. It doesn't even do justice what we paid you. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So we decided we're making you an official member for life of the oh, thank you so much. So besides an artist and a researcher, she's an incredible human being. I think you can all agree. So and then lastly, I put together a binder of the history of the mural, and you can look at this. You can also scan the QR code. We also have it on the door. All of this information is posted at our website. Thanks to our wonderful tech person, Stuart Savage of Davis. Thank you very much for your assistance with that. So we just have two more things. One is the ribbon cutting. And then the last thing is to invite you to have refreshments and visit. So the ribbon cutting is next. Yeah, we'd like to have, let's see, Colleen's family. So husband and parents and any family of Colleen that would like to come up. And then all the board members and volunteers. So if you're wearing a black polo shirt, we'd love to have you join us up here for the ribbon cutting. So let's see, Nelson, Bill, Carolyn, Darla, Paul, Carol, Ashley, Kelly, Frank, Mom. Oh, and while we're setting up, everyone, I forgot something very important. We have two of John Fong's children here, and we have his brother-in-law. Can you raise your hand? This is, yeah, this is Carlton Fong, this is Darlene Fong, and here's Bing, who is the brother of John Fong's wife. So thank you, and I'm so, did you want to say?
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be back here. My name's Bing Lee. You know, like Bing Crosby? It's my favorite. Sing and dance. I do the same thing, too. But anyway, I came to work in Party Market back in 1969, November, when John took over the business. I came here to help him do the inventory. I came to the United States from Hong Kong, 1969, November also. I do not speak English, so that was a surprise for me. But anyway, as you know, when I start working here, I love the people that I'm working with. The kids I'm working with, they're all my age, you know, teenager around here. But I don't see too many around here my age, so that's good. But anyway, I talk about the railroad. Probably a lot of people don't know that. My grandfather came over here and helped build a railroad back in then. And he been back and forth, you know, and then he passed away in America. So yeah. And then we have a 150-year anniversary back in the several years ago about the connection between the East and West connection in Utah. We had a big celebration back then. So I'm really happy to see this right in the middle of here, the dedicated railroad. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. That's it. That's a bunch of nice, great people here. All right, thank you.